Remedy's Max Payne was a very cool game. Taking heavy inspiration from the films of John Woo, this 2001 release did an amazing job of making you feel like you're the hero of a gritty action movie. Max Payne is an undercover DEA agent and ex-NYPD cop who plays by his own rules. Following the tragic death of his family, things take a turn for the worse as Max ends up on the run after being framed for the murder of a fellow law enforcer and friend. To clear your name, you have to take on basically every gangster in the city, eventually uncovering a conspiracy that goes further than you could have imagined. Along the way, you get to hear Max's frequent narration, often filled with cheesy but lovable analogies.
Out in the night, snow fell like confetti over the Devil's Parade. The storm was anything but over.
The game's biggest innovation? Bullet time. At the press of a button, you can slow down the action and get the upper hand on your foes, taking them out with stylish ease. This was copied a lot. One of the first games to seriously rip off Max Payne was 2002's Dead to Rights. This game takes place in Grant City. No, not Grant City, Missouri, the fictional Chicago-esque Grant City. You play as Jack Slate. Max Payne, Jack Slate, it's like they weren't even trying. Oh, and he's a cop. One who plays by his own rules, in fact. His dad tragically meets his end. Okay, well, that's too bad. Then he ends up on the run after being framed for the murder of some guy. Sound familiar? Well, unlike Max Payne, who never gets arrested until he takes care of business, Jack Slate does, only to escape from prison the night of his planned execution. From here, you seek to get even, eventually uncovering a conspiracy that goes further than you could have imagined. And, of course, Jack narrates his journey, making sure to throw in fairly constant analogies.
The truck spilled its contents like a biblical revelation. This was all about gold, money, the root of all evil.
Well, he's no James McCaffrey. Early in your journey, you form an alliance with the deadly female gunslinger, Eve Adams, who tragically meets her end. Max Payne similarly teamed up with a femme fatale, Mona Sachs, who seemingly meets her end. Though, unlike Max Payne, which builds up the character over the course of the game, Eve dies a few missions after being introduced, rather suddenly, and never to be mentioned again. And that's just the plot. The gameplay is also very similar. You often dual-wield pistols, and it even seems to be your signature look, just like Max Payne. During firefights, your bullet casings litter the floor, as does the blood of dead enemies. Just like Max Payne. Biggest of all, you can do this. Yes, you can slow down time while doing a shoot dodge, taking out a bunch of enemies at once. Just like Max Payne. However, unlike Max Payne, where you can do a slowdown at any time, in Dead to Rights, you can only do it during a shoot dodge. Guess they had to differentiate it somehow. Well, that's not fair to say. It does do a few things Max Payne doesn't. For one, you have your trusty canine companion, Shadow. Upon filling his bar, Shadow can be sent to instantly kill any enemy within range, after which he'll bring you said enemy's weapon. What a great dog. Another thing you can do that Max Payne can't is take human shields, Total Recall style. Press circle to grab any enemy within range, having them take damage in your place. Pretty useful in cases where you're low on health and out in the open. The way the shooting itself controls is also very different from Max Payne. In that game, you directly control your aim at all times. Hitting enemies relies on your skill. That's not really the case here. If you've ever played the PS1 Siphon Filter games, Dead to Rights is basically the same as that. You hold R1 to lock onto an enemy, then fire away. And as with that series, range plays an important role. When the reticle is green, your shots won't land. When it's yellow, they're within range, though there's a chance you may miss. When it's red, you will definitely land a hit. Since different weapons have different range, you need to carefully consider what gun to use at what time. One more thing you can do that Max Payne can't, at least in the first 2 games in that series, is take cover using a dedicated cover button. Though it's pretty awkward and not something I ever found necessary. While in cover, you press R1 to pop out of cover and aim at a target. Strangely though, I found a lot of the time I wouldn't lock onto them until I pressed R1 again. This delay always gave the enemies a chance to hit me. Other early cover-based shooters, such as the Getaway and Winback covert operations, had slightly better cover systems, even if neither of those does it perfect as well. The way this game handles your gun inventory is interesting. You don't really have extra clips to reload. If a gun holds 30 rounds, that's it. Though, if you walk over the same gun, it does get back its ammo. I guess this leads to you using a different approach than a lot of other games, including Max Payne. You constantly need to switch weapons. Even your signature dual pistols can't be used for too long. And one very big differentiator from Max Payne is the inclusion of hand-to-hand combat sections, though they kinda suck. It basically boils down to blocking your enemy's hits, attacking after they finish, and quickly pressing the circle button to escape from their clutches after they grab you. It's just not very fun. That said, the shooting gameplay actually is. While simple, killing enemies with firearms stays satisfying the whole game through, largely due to the over-the-top amount of blood spray, and of course, using Shadow has a great feel as well. Another thing this game does to keep the gameplay fresh is by throwing in a ton of minigames. Strangely, the very first one is taking control of a stripper to distract some guards. This only happens once at nearly the start of the game, so I guess they wanted to get in their sexy scene as early as possible. After this, you get a lockpicking minigame and a bomb defusing minigame, which do repeat at an occasional pace, as well as a first-person section where you're firing a machine gun from a helicopter. Max Payne doesn't really change up that much. Sure, there are a few segments where you're unarmed, but it's mostly about working your way through groups of enemies, using guns, and progressing to the next area. That said, it stays fun throughout. At least in my case, I am always looking forward to facing the next batch of thugs. In Dead to Rights, though, I was kind of dreading the hand-to-hand sections because of how much I disliked them. So, while variety in a game can certainly be a great thing, it's not so great when one of the gameplay variations is far less fun and more frustrating than the other. This frustration mostly comes from the bosses. The hand-to-hand boss fights always have some sort of pattern or gimmick you need to understand in order to win. For example, one fight has you in a room filled with poison. When you hit the boss, they drop a gas mask you can pick up. When they hit you, you drop the gas mask as well and they can get it back. You can die pretty quickly in this part if you aren't on top of things, and it's basically the same with every unarmed boss. Oddly, with the exception of one towards the end, the gun-based boss fights are extremely easy. At one point, these 2 assassin ladies show up and you think it's going to be this really tough fight since you're facing 2 seemingly strong opponents, but nope, beat them on my first try. So, there are some aspects that Max Payne and Dead to Rights share, as well as what holds them apart. And while it's not a one-to-one copy, I think it's safe to say that this game unquestionably wouldn't exist without Max Payne, at least in the form it's in. There are just too many similarities to ignore. The storyline, the way it's told, and, of course, the primary focus of the gameplay all go a bit beyond just being inspired, if you ask me. And I would indeed call it a ripoff. But is it bad? Well, no. In fact, I liked it. The good sections more than make up for the less than stellar ones, and at the end of the day, I found it to be an enjoyable experience. If you like John Woo style action games and are okay with dated control schemes, this one is worth giving a shot. Just don't expect it to be as good as Max Payne, because it is far from that level in the gameplay, the writing, and even the acting.
See you in hell, Jack Slade.
I'll see you in
hell.
See you in hell.
Both of you in hell.
See you in hell. I suppose I'll see you in hell.
Welp, that's that. Now, before you get super upset thinking I besmirched the name of your beloved game by calling it a ripoff, don't forget that being a ripoff isn't necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it even adds to the enjoyment. And also,
It's only a game. Why do you have to be mad?
if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to see more like it in the future. Fans of the channel may also want to consider supporting it on Patreon or as a YouTube member for early access footage, the chance to pick games for review, and more. Well, with that said, I guess it's time to close this thing out. As always, thanks for watching The Legend of Games.